Yes.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. Like, you felt disappointed by some of our victims. You want to talk about that? Like, how you want to.
Is this like a therapy session for me? Like, your essays were so bad, let me now vent.
Because maybe I'd like to know how we can do better.
You can't.
No.
You know, this is a how-to culture. And the assumption is that, whenever something goes wrong, there is an easy way to fix it. You know, it's kind of like an IKEA culture. You know, you go to the top floor, you see a table, and you say, yeah, I want that. So you go to the basement, aisle 25, you look at a couple of shelves, you grab a couple of boxes, you go home, follow the steps, and there you have it. And so most of the books that you will probably see on self-help sections, various bookstores, it's all about that. You're depressed, these are the steps you follow, and that'll be it. You know, you're going through a divorce, these are the steps you must follow. You're black, this is what you should do. You're white, this is what you should do. And the truth is, I think the meaningful issues that human beings have had to wrestle with, there are no answers to them. And if there are, it usually takes a long, long, long time. I think if you have known anyone who's been addicted to anything, whether it's pornography or video games or smoking, there comes a point where they want to recover. They want to kind of rehab themselves. Because in addiction, you lose a lot of things about yourself. And you also lose a lot of people in your life. And they kind of treat you like a savage after a while. And there comes a point, maybe you still have a lot of nice friends, but one morning, like Elizabeth Taylor, I remember she had an interview a long time ago. She's dead for a while now. She had gained a lot of weight, and she was okay with it, except one night she came out of the bathtub and looked herself in the mirror, and she was horrified. And I don't know how that happens, that you're a certain way and you're that way for a long, long time, and all of a sudden, something from within, you know, says to you, you need to change. I don't know how that happens or why it happens, you know. And then there's this desire to change. Let's say you've been smoking too much, but now you have a child. That it may be a little different, but let's just say you're in a relationship with a guy or a gal and they don't want you to smoke. Now, it's been a habit of yours for about 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So the longer an activity, the deeper its roots, you know. If you go to Home Depot and buy a redwood, 1 gallon, you can plant it. You can go back the following year and just grab it and pull it out. Not a problem. If on the other hand, it's been there for about 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 40 years, it's a very, very difficult thing to do, to grab it and dig it out. And so because you desire to change, you may go on fasting, not play video games or smoking for a day, maybe 2, maybe 3. But the desire is like this brand new seed. Addiction is like this old tree that's been there for a while. And so you're going to fail. And in failing, you're going to lose a good amount of self-confidence. You're going to punish yourself. You're going to say, oh, why am I doing this? You justify your previous behaviors for many, 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 many years. And then you'll give up, unless you have a support system. Your mom jumps in, your dad jumps in, your friends jump in. Maybe you want to go to school, you realize that you're up in age and you got to kind of better your life a little bit. So a lot of things must come hand in hand to help you change. If I was to ask you to write about age, old age, well, you can do that. You're what, 25? 32. I have no doubt that your command of the English language is relatively well. You can write about old age, you know, maybe 20 pages, 30 pages, 40 pages. Maybe you can look at your mom, your dad as they've aged, that they're moving a little slowly. And there is nothing wrong. It's very abstract. It's theoretical. It's out there. You're not really embodying the ideas you're talking about, but you observe certain things and you can write about them. Then you get to be 70. And then you want to write about old age. You begin to look at time differently. You begin to look at youth differently. You begin to look at waste differently. You begin to look at your life differently. This is no longer a 30-year-old writing about old age. This is an older person writing about old age. It's very, very, very different. Allegory of the Cave, I think it's the essay that you have to write about. It was written by a guy some 3,000 years ago. His name was Plato. Plato was a young punk. He was like his age, 9. You know, he had great parents. His father was a lawyer. His mom was somewhat of a religious, woman. They believed in the gods. His father, who was a lawyer, wanted Plato to be a lawyer. For some odd reason, he ran into this strange fellow, Socrates, his teacher. Worked with him for about 5, 6, 10, 20 years. Watched Socrates die. Now, your question is, how can I write about the allegory of the cave in a different way? Well, you're not Plato. You're not a Greek. You didn't live some 3,000 years ago. You didn't have a teacher. You're not 17, whose life was uprooted by a man you hardly know. If you look at all these different components, you realize, well, there isn't really much you can do about the allegory of the cave. You can think about it, sure, it's a great story. It can inspire you, but that doesn't mean anything.
Is it because it's somebody else's experience? You can't really understand like what actually went on, or like.
Well, you can have a lot of different experiences. Processing them is very different. First, you have to care for the things you experience. And many of the things that human beings experience are negative. It's difficult. They're frustrating. I mean, look at the age group in this room. It's only now some of us in this class can go back in time and say, if I only knew then what I know now, I would have been done with school when I was 18 or 19 or 20. You had a lot of fun, but now at this age, you look at fun differently. You look at school differently. You look at your age differently. So a lot of things have to come together for you to be able to process an experience. And once you begin to process, there's going to be a good amount of regret. You're going to be angry at yourself, at other people, maybe even your parents. Mom, you should have slapped me, kicked me, punched me. When I told you I want to quit school, you should have said, no, stay in school. When you first saw me smoke, you should have slapped me. We have all these things, and there is a good amount of conflict. And you have to deal with all of them. And processing any experience is going to be very, 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 very different. If you look at Mike Tyson and James Baldwin, these are two completely different human beings who process what it means to be black in America very, very differently. Okay? Now, this is something that James Baldwin would say when he was alive, that if someone was to look at me and call me the N-word, I would probably look at him and say, let me take you to Pete's coffee shop. Let's sit. And let me see what sort of a disease you have, in what ways you're sick, that you're prompted to call me the N-word. That's what he would do. And that's because he had to figure out what to do with his, first of all, sexuality. His father was a religious man. He didn't know if he liked girls or boys for a long, long time. He moved to France where all the intellectuals, the poets, the artists were, And he was an introvert, very small little man, He's probably a number 4 in the personality typology. He had the ability to sit back and observe. An observation of anything is very, 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 very difficult. Let's say, for example, you don't like your father. Well, it's very easy not to like people. Let's say your father. Let's say I'm your father. And let's just say I happen to be a drunk. From the moment you met me, when you were like 0 age, okay? Well, you run to me for a hug and I scream at you. It's kind of like the Garden of Eden story, But your frontal lobe as a child is not yet fully developed. So you run back and you cry, your mom hugs you, and then the entire thing is forgotten. Tomorrow comes, you run to me this time, not only do I scream at you, but I also slap you. Okay. And then you realize, and it's an instinctual behavior, set of emotions that we have, that there is someone out there, I want to go give him a hug or give him a kiss, but he's rejecting me, and instinctually you know, well, that's a space you shouldn't occupy. Danger zone. And that becomes the emotion you're addicted to the most. Okay. And you live with this anger for a long, long time. And it destroys every relationship you walk into. Whether it's a man or a woman, whether it's a dog or a classroom, you come to this class and I make certain demands and it reminds you of your father, and so you begin to hate me as well. There comes a point you realize you're no longer 20 or 30 or 40. Most of your life has been under this avalanche of hate and anger and just destruction. And then you want to change. The therapy is not going to change you. What you need to do is ask yourself why I am the way, why your father, me. You know, I didn't have a father myself. And I had the same experience you did. All kids want to be loved. I wanted to be loved, but there was no father to be had. And little by little, as you begin to have more information about my life, because this is what your mom, my wife, who's left me, now begins to tell you, let me tell you a few things about your dad, A, B, C, D. And you realize now with this new information, you want to hate me, but you can't, because now you have access to things you didn't know. Okay, and it's going to take you a long, long time for the lion and the lamb to lay together harmoniously. You know. And if you want to overcome this anger you have towards me, this hatred you have towards me, which has leaked into every part of your life, now you have to process the experience. And to process means to understand. To understand means you have to be kind of like a lawyer. You can't get entangled in the emotions. You have to kind of detach yourself from the stories. You just have to look at what's happening and pay attention. Write essays. Okay? You feel, but now you can actually put your feelings in this intellectual way. You know, without kind of getting contaminated by these emotions that go nowhere. And the idea of detachment is very, 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 very difficult. You know, if you have read that verse in the one of the Gospels, he who sits next to me sits next to fire. Well, that's what fire does. It removes your past. It removes your emotions. It removes you. And you have to adopt the ways of Jesus or whoever. You know, if you want to get into a new relationship and the guy is really, really healthy, that is what you must adopt. And for you to receive what this guy has to offer you, you have to get rid of your past, and it's tough. Now, it's only in America that they say that all these things are easy. Just read a book, go to a workshop, a seminar, watch a couple of YouTubes, and it'll be done. It won't happen. Ask any alcoholic who's gone through rehab, and he or she will tell you. It took 20, 30, 40 years. And writing essays is very much like that. You know, even if you were to take this in a perhaps a different way, you know, initially when a child is born, they do a lot of grunts and groans to express what it is that they desire. Whether it's food, whether they have gas in their belly and they need someone to just, you know, punch their back or something, it takes them a while. Then they begin to learn words. Okay. An expression that took a child to be understood, like 2, 3, 4, 5 hours, lots of crying, lots of screaming, a single word now does it. I want food. Pain. Now, as you grow a little older and as you kind of begin to use these words quite often, you kind of become too casual with them, you know. And so when people write essays, they treat words very casually. And it's part of the way this culture, and any culture, is right now. Cosmic consciousness, compassion, community. I have no idea what those things mean. But nevertheless, people use them all the time. Jack.
What about words?
It's natural.
People use them all the time.
Fine. Your point is what? What you're experiencing right now is very, very new. For the longest time, the browns lived over there, the blacks lived over there, the yellows lived over there, and the whites lived over there. It's only now where all of us are forced to live together that we have to kind of figure out who this other person is, what their culture is, what their language is, what their background is. These are relatively new terms, and we're brand new at this. Love didn't exist for the longest time. I mean, the romantic love that you and I engage in. Your parents make the decision as to who you should marry, and that's it. Today, the story is different. You go around, you meet a lot of rats, and you marry them. And then it doesn't go well. Jack. Layla? Lydia.
So we were talking about just like essays and how it takes like 10 plus years to study master grades. Does that mean that we're all just get like low grades for the summer? It's like this isn't something that we can add.
Well, first of all, it doesn't mean that just because something takes 20, 30, 40 years, good afternoon, that you're actually going to become good at them. First, you have to care. But for care to happen, you have to be interested. I may be interested in you, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, but I have to take the initiative. Come over there, ask you out on a date. And then you're going to reject me. You're going to say I'm too old. Then I have to persist, keep calling you. I mean, I have to have a good amount of interest in you. It has to be passionate. It has to be intense. And then maybe, after like 20, 30 days, you look at me and say, Amir, I think I'm beginning to like you. Well, how long did it take that to happen? 2 years. You can be interested in a whole host of things. It doesn't mean anything. You want an A? I can give you an A. I mean, you'll be a loser in life, but I can give you an A. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't take very much for us to fail. Whether you get an A or a B or a C or a D or an F. I mean, if you look at, for example, the life of Malcolm X at its beginning, it's a complete failure. And I think if he was to, say, be at Laney or Princeton, Stanford, they would have failed him. Maybe even kicked him out. But then you see the end result. And you realize this is a guy who needs like 20 PhDs to just be given to him. So just because you get an A in class, it doesn't mean you're going to end up well. And just because you fail a class, it doesn't mean that you won't end up well. Most of the things are a shot in the dark. But if you're talking about understanding ideas that have been around for like 5, 6, 7, 10,000 years, you're not going to get them anytime soon. Yeah. Well,
So it seems like this class is really like a cave.
I think at different stages of life, or perhaps different moments, all of us have these moments where we feel discontent, unhappy, miserable. Some of us know the root causes. Some of it is just mystifying. We don't really know. But it seems that there is something wrong with our software. We're just, look at Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. Everything is given to them. They have no worries. They don't really need to do much of anything except just sit and relax and enjoy life. But no, they're just miserable. There is something that they want to touch. There is something they want to experience. You're married, you have a great relationship, and yet, how are you? It's not enough. You have a job, it's paid for your car, for your house, for your kids' school. It's just not enough. That's just the way things are. And so you move from one cave to another. And I think the trick really is, it's not so much about the cave. I think Plato is wrong. The task, I think, is to figure out what cave you want to be in. There was a movie a long time ago, it's called Stigmata. For those of you who may not know, it's the 5 wounds of Christ, when he was on the cross. And so this girl in New York, it's a movie, so there is a scene where she is sitting with the priest who's come from Rome to kind of fix her up, to figure out what's wrong with her. And there is a moment where he likes her, she likes him, And she looks at him and says, did you always want to be a priest? Didn't you like find women attractive? And he says, well, you know, whether you're a priest or you want to like fall in love with a woman, they both have their own unique set of issues. And the question is, which issues do you want to wrestle with? You want to be single, there is nothing wrong with that. As long as you know what the issues are with being single. You're single, it's okay, because you don't have to worry about the evil of another human being. But as you age, you know, you need help. You need help walking. It's nice to sit and watch a movie with someone, have food with someone, you know. But these are not issues that you can actually comprehend when you're in your 20s or 30s or 40s or 50s. They just all of a sudden come upon you without really knowing. So you need to understand the cave in which you live and be okay with it. And it's difficult. You know, the idea that you have to knock and the door shall be opened unto you. The truth is, from the moment you're born and the time you die, you have to knock on 50, 60, 70,000 doors. Until finally, hopefully, if you're lucky, a door opens and says, I like this one. No one's going to get it right on the first try. It's impossible. I mean, just a few years of James Baldwin. That's very telling. Do I like boys? Do I like girls? Do I like both? And it takes him a while to figure things out. And, you know, if you want to be gay, then you have to be okay with the way people look at you. They judge you. And this is not, you're not talking about 2020, what is it, 24? 2024? You know, you're talking about like a time where such things are not accepted. In white or black communities, as much. You know, and finally, he says, you know what, I'm gay. It's okay. But for you to be okay, it means that you need to have a good amount of power. Because you have to be okay with your father no longer talking to you. You have to be okay with society judging you. You have to be okay with all of that and not break. And most of us don't have such resources. You know, Mike Tyson, it's only been recent where he's a bit civilized. You know, for the first like 30 years, 40 years of his life, he was like a savage. And now when you sit and listen to him talk, it's beautiful. Anyone else before we... Myla? If you're new to this class, or if I haven't seen you or recognize you, make sure you talk to me after class, because you need to be reinstated. There's a good chance I probably have dropped you. Anyone else before we... No?
Self-forgiveness.
Forgiveness. Imagine for a moment that I come over there and slap you really hard. You're not Jesus Christ. You're just a regular chap, okay? You're not going to forgive me. Your body is going to have this negative reaction, and it's instinctual. Your body does not like pain. That's just the way things are. And you don't have to feel bad for beating me up. Okay? Now, I'll come over there and slap you. A couple of things run through your mind. First, I'm an instructor. Yes, you could go to my dean. Yes, you could fire me. Yes, you could also fail the class. All those things, okay? There's going to be a good amount of pain initially. Then pain is going to morph, grow into anger. And it depends on your history, it depends on your temperament. If this anger is going to show itself physically or it's going to just remain as an idea, set of emotions in your head. Now, depending on your background, let's just say you've always been angry because you have no father, no mother, you've been drinking, smoking, and lots of awful things happening in your life. And so I become a good vehicle for you to pounce on. You can get rid of 30 years of repressed suppressed emotions. Fine. Now let's say I'm 80. Not 60, but 80. But nevertheless, I come over and slap you. Let's just say you're the sort of a fellow that you will slap me back. And I fall on the ground and break my arms, both of them, and my legs. You know, as you age, your bones, they're hollow, they break easily. Okay? Now, you're going to laugh, and you're going to be okay because justice has been served. An eye for an eye. Time passes, and this episode is forgotten. And one day, you go home and you see your mom, and she's reading a book. You say, Mom, what are you reading? Oh, I'm reading the Bible. Read aloud, I'm bored. You don't like religion, you don't like God, you hate the Bible, but nevertheless, boredom is a different story. As she's reading, you know, forgive your enemies. For some strange reason, you know, this passage just goes inside you. And for whatever the reasons are, that particular passage opens a certain file inside you that you've stored in your memory. And all of a sudden, the image of Amir Sabzavari comes out. Something that you haven't really thought about for the past like 20 years. All of a sudden, I'm fully alive inside your psyche. And you feel really bad for what you've done. An old guy, it was probably, maybe I'm just mentally ill, you know, and instead of you taking me to the nurse's office, you pounce on me. You know, I only slapped you once, but you slapped me 5 times. Okay? First, it's going to take you a long, long time for you to figure out why you did what you did to a guy who's like 30 years older than you are. You have to come to a place to forgive yourself. But you have to overcome this stupid, ridiculous definition you have for justice, for pain, all that. Then you have to figure out where I live. Because you forgiving yourself is not enough. You need also me to forgive you. You know, the idea that Jesus has the power to remove your sins. If you have a guilty conscience, Jesus can't do much.
So you forgive yourself.
Yeah, so you have to kind of come to a place where you're able to kind of look at the history, look at the emotions, you know, rest with it, be okay with it. Then you have to figure where I live, if I'm still alive, and we can talk this through, and then we can become buddies. But forgiveness is always about transgression, that someone has done something wrong, or at least you assume that they have done something wrong. There is nothing to forgive if you don't think someone has done you wrong. So you must have this feeling that someone did you wrong. Now, just because you are at that stage, it doesn't mean that you're easily going to forgive. You have to go through a whole host of emotions. And emotions are tricky, because they start with a feeling, sometimes a mood. And then you repeat that experience over and over and over again until it turns into emotions. And once it becomes an emotion, it lives inside you. It's not going to go away. And if it's really serious, it's what we call trauma. It's never going to go away. And they don't need to go away. You know, traumas are not meant to go away. They're there to kind of just stay there. If you haven't processed them, they'll torment you. If you have processed them, they'll become a tool for wisdom, for you to kind of just, you know, it's like having a set of tools in your garage. Whenever something breaks down, you can go to the garage and pick up the toolbox and fix what it is that you need fixing. Yeah. Anyone else before we? Abi? This is a religion class, right? Jack?
Are you religious?
No.
So you don't believe in God at all?
No.
What do you think? You think that you believe that shit?
No.
What do you believe?
I'm just here to have fun, man.
But you just have self-reflect. Like, yourself coming out.
I was born this way.
You try to lead others to the light as well, or no?
Darkness. What was your name? William. Imagine you and I are married. Can you imagine that? Close your eyes. Imagine it. Our parents are there. You have flowers on your head. You're holding hands by the beach. So it starts with a good amount of dreams and hopes, right? I like you like me, I love you love me. You're gonna have kids, adopt them. You're gonna buy a house. It's all light. But long-term relationships are tough. And they're nearly impossible these days. So let's say after many months of intense disagreements where I physically abuse you. Can you imagine that? Hello. We decide to part ways. Okay. We've been together for about 10 years. So sometimes late at night you wake up and you imagine walking away from the relationship. Once in a while, as you're thinking about walking away from the relationship, you begin to think about, well, who's going to take the house? How are we going to cut the car in half? The bank account, this, that. Now, the thing you also need to remember as a human being is that whether you want to or not, you become attached. If you and I have been together for about 10 years, man, you and I have created history. Even if it's negative, it's history. That history, when you go out and someone asks you your name, you say, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a house owner or a homeowner, whatever. Okay? So all these make who you are. You're not just walking away from me. You're walking from a whole host of different identities. There is no light just yet. All you have is darkness, confusion. What are you going to tell your parents? You made a vow, and as a Christian man, only death do us part. And you're not talking about like psychological, emotional death. Like physically, you got to be dead. That's the only way a divorce can happen. And your parents, what are you going to tell them? Oh, I just don't like him anymore. And they're old school. You think they're going to care about how you feel? So they're going to make you feel bad for how you feel about me. Now, the other thing you need to understand about us, power. You can't survive life if you have no power. You come to this class because you have power, you have a car, you're healthy, you have money. Without power, you wouldn't be here. The only thing that matters in life is power. Okay? Now, as you begin to contemplate divorce, power begins to leak out. You wake up exhausted. You go to work cranky. Your friends want to call you and talk to you, but you don't want to talk to them. You're going through a divorce. It's something you've never done before. It's a brand new experience. You don't have the language for it. You have emotions you don't really understand. There is no light here. It's only darkness. And then you begin to put stuff in boxes to take from the house. And every piece of item you put in this box, a memory comes forth. It takes you like 10 hours to just pack a tiny little thing. Because there's a story in everything that you and I have built. And now you said, do I really want to do this? Let's just say you've done all of that and you have your own apartment. The hell are you going to do with loneliness? For the past 10 years, you've been laying next to me. Naked. Now what? You know, you're not an animal lover. You're not going to go out there and buy a dog or a cat. And someone looks at you and says, "Hi, you're cute, but you're damaged goods." You want to be with someone, but something about you says, "No, you've been there, you've done that." Do you know how long it's going to take you to overcome all the emotions that divorce creates? After 10 years, maybe if you're lucky, you'll see some light. And it depends what sort of a light you're talking about. Because if you say you get the light and you, as a human being, you have no choice but to be in a different relationship, you have to now. Your body needs companionship, your emotions need companionship. But usually when you get into a second relationship, second marriage, it's going to be less stable. It'll be much easier for you to walk away because you know how it feels now. You're not going to put up with too much nonsense. And then you know what's going to happen as you age? You won't be in any relationship. You know why? You don't like to be hurt. And then you'll be like Bobby Fischer, for those of you who may know him. He's this grand chess player. You know, he was kind of paranoid, but nevertheless, near the end of his life, you know what he said? He didn't say chess is magical. He didn't say Jesus Christ. He said the most magical thing any human being can experience is another human being's touch. It's like when you're in pain and you run to your mom. Or if you watch the movie Ratatouille, you make ratatouille. It's a dish, food, like vegetables. Anyone else? Mayla?
Talk about regression.
Regression. Can I just... Imagine for a moment that I smoke.
Oh, what?
Oakland stuff. You know. And I don't smoke weed because I have cancer. I don't smoke weed because I have migraine headaches. I'm just a ridiculous fellow. You know, it's a plant, it's organic, it's all that nonsense that people talk about. Okay? And there comes a point where I decide to go to school, or maybe be in a relationship. The problem with school and relationship is that they demand responsibility. You need to read books, you need to write papers, you need to think. You need to show up to your classes. Now, you've been smoking for the past like 10, 15, 20 years, or I have. Okay? And for the first time, I've taken myself seriously because I kind of like Elizabeth Taylor, come out of the bathtub, I say, Amir, you're no longer 20 or 30 or 40. You're getting older, uglier, smellier. You know, make your life a bit more meaningful. So I'm inspired. But inspiration needs protecting. It's like a brand new relationship. It can be amongst vultures. And some vultures are on the outside and some vultures are on the inside. Addictions, past, history, all that. Now, I want to live a healthy life. I want to do good in my classes. But smoking has been a preoccupation of mine for the past 20 years, and I love it. Kind of like Bill Maher. Is it Bill Maher? You know, he says, I'll do anything. I'll change for anyone except smoking weed. Okay. Now, you wake up in the morning, you shower, you change, and you go to your first class, and it's exciting, and you like yourself. It's the first day you've woken up, showered, and you're completely sober. It's a brand new life. But you find yourself in a very difficult situation. You've never focused really on anything. Now, some people say when you smoke, you can focus. I don't think that's true.
I think That's very true.
It's not true. Okay. I'm not talking about just having experiences to understand something. If you want to write a good essay, you need to understand things well. And just because you get an A, it doesn't mean you understand. It just means you write well. Okay. Now, you go home and you realize, well, you have to read like 200 pages. You don't want to do that. You've never done that. And your friends call. And you realize all these temptations are coming your way. You say, well, what the hell do I usually do when things become tough? Well, I like to sit next to Jesus Christ. Who helps me with that? Not the Bible, but weed. So you go to your bedroom and you grab a bucket, one of those 5-gallon buckets of weed, and you smoke the whole thing. And then you sit and you read something, or you write something. It's really for the most part garbage, but nevertheless. And then you sober up. You say, God damn it, I had promised myself not to do what I did. To focus, to stay at school, to do this, to do that. And that inspiration kind of gets snatched. And you realize that your promises don't mean anything. You have no value. Your words mean no value. You have no value. And you try to shower, you try to talk to your friends, you try to, I don't know, listen to Robin. What is that guy who does like positive, motivational talk? No, he's dead. But anyways, Tony Robbins. Yeah, he's an idiot. Then listen to him, he inspires you a little bit. Say, yes, I'm not going to do this again. And you are sober for like 2 days now. And then things get tough. Because life is tough, man. Life is just frustrating. From the moment you're born to the time you die. Because new things are coming your way. And you don't have the proper tools. Or the knowledge. You know. There's nothing wrong with falling in love. You're just 16. You don't know what love is. You don't know what a human relationship is all about. You don't understand the complexities of society, the complexities of your own psyche. And so every time you try to rise up and make your life anew, you just crash. And then after a while you say, you know what? I think God just made me to be a smoker. That's my destiny. That's my fate. And you go back to being who you were for 20 years. Inspiration, all of it goes away. For any change to happen that's fundamental, you need a support system. You can't do it without a support system. James Baldwin could not be who he was without a support system. Malcolm X could not be who he was without a support system. Mahatma Gandhi wouldn't be the man that he was without gaining power over other people. I mean, Jesus Christ, when he died alone. It's only through the power of advertisement that we have Christianity, or Buddhism, or Islam. If there is no force behind you, you can't do much. And that's one of the tragedies of, I think, living in America and being an American. You just live a very isolated life. And you assume that you can overcome the complexities of life by yourself, and it's not true. We have always lived in communities, small communities, very intimate. Now everybody's on their own. Anyone else before we,
So I believe the question was aggression on the website. It says here, it means a sexual form or arrestable state, and you're arguing that drugs, marijuana, and that they use bring you back to that less developed state. But can you think of anything like naturally in the world other than, maybe hanging out with the wrong crowd, like things that subconsciously we wouldn't consider taking us back to regression, but that are like maybe hidden in plain sight or something?
Can you do your question a different way?
Okay, so one person that over there part of it, you talk about regression, you use marijuana, right? So using a drug can take you back to a less developed state.
No. Drugs, like anything else, is like a tool. One of the best examples I can give you is Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley was a guy who he would read all the time, and he had all these ideas. What he was missing was experience. There was a guy in Canada who, for the first time, I think, in Canada, and he used the word LSD, okay? And that word was kind of brought to America and other places. Aldous Huxley his first wife had cancer, and she died a miserable death. When he himself had cancer, he called this guy and said, listen, I don't want to die the way my wife did. Can you bring me some drugs to numb the pain? Also, when he first did his first experiment with drugs, he had this magnificent experience. Now, if you want to do drugs under the guidance of someone, more power to you. If you want to do it as a form of entertainment, less power to you.
Well, that brings me to the gentleman over there. You can smoke still study, and you said no.
No.
So what he just said, he needed drugs as a tool.
As a tool under the guidance of someone who's been there and who's done that. When I first came to Laney, this was in 2004, I think, some of my students said to me, we want to take you to certain parts of Oakland that not even black people can go, but we'll take you because we live there. And so I sat in the car with one of them and they took me there. And that's the point I'm trying to make. If I go there by myself, I'm a foreigner. I don't belong. Okay? It's like you knocking on my door. I have no idea who you are. I'm not going to invite you in. Okay? If on the other hand, I go with someone who is in the system, then it'll be okay. You can either go through things with the desire to understand, or you just want a quick experience. Just don't do it. You know, it's kind of like what our parents used to say, have sex when you get married, not before. You know, you have sex, you're 17. It's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with it. It's great. But then it morphs into, it brings about these emotions. Then you get entangled. You're 17, you're a kid, you're a punk. And who you're in love with? Another punk. No education, no money, they have nothing, but you're in love with them. And so how long do you think this is going to last before it falls apart? 2 weeks, 2 hours, 2 years? It's not going to go anywhere. You know, and God forbid if you get pregnant, it's more of a disaster your way. And so at the age of 18 or 19, you've been in love for 2 years, it's going to fall apart. What you have is this awful experience now. I fell in love, it didn't work out. How are you going to be in your other relationships? How many more people are you going to sleep with before you figure things out? I'm not saying that it's going to be bad all the time and forever, but I think just being a human being is a tricky business, and especially in a society as complex as this, where everything is about entertainment. There was a guy, what was his name? Tocqueville. He was French, sociologist. He was sent by the French government to America to figure out the prison systems. He began to love two groups of people, Native Americans and black people. But he said something really interesting about books. He said, you know, the printing press came about the 15th century, Wittenberg, Germany. And for the first time, you could write your ideas on paper, and within 10 minutes, you have like 1 million copies. First time. When the printing press happened, you had lots of Bibles. You have lots of classical literature. Dialogues of Plato, you know, the works of Aristotle, Sophocles. But when he came to America, he realized something interesting. The books that are published in America are about Taylor Swift and Kim Kardashian and Donald Trump. It's just junk. And you are what you eat. He said the only two groups of people who are relatively sane are the black communities and the Native American communities, the Indians. The white man is gone in America, he argued. Jack.
So when you're talking about drugs, right? What is a drug? It's
Oh, here we go. What is a drug? Isn't coffee a drug?
it's a vibe. roller coaster. It doesn't teach you. I mean,
Yeah, it's stupid.
you're saying that, if you get it, a shaman or whatever.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. First of all, the shaman wouldn't take you. There are prerequisites. It's like taking calculus. They wouldn't take you, man. Just because you say, oh, here I am. Can I follow you? No, they'll probably like hang you. You have no redeeming qualities to be taught anything valuable. It takes a long time to become a good student of anything. Try doing piano. Anyone else? No? I know you probably find me very judgmental. It's okay, yeah.
So I've been thinking about what you said in the last class about we're not equipped to reflect and whether the driver is mad or just we're not able to process. So what exactly if someone does want to reflect and also there's like regression in certain types of you engage in certain things or bad habits, and how do you reflect how you can avoid regressing like old habits?
Do you have children? Yeah, parents though. You like them. Let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that you're a heterosexual man, i.e., you like women. Organically, naturally, instinctually, you walk around, and if there is something out there that feels attractive, you walk towards it. You don't need to think, you don't need to reflect. Angelina Jolie, she's attractive. I don't care about her history. I just look at her face, attractive. That's what the organism does. Okay? Instinctually, whatever it is that you're attracted to, you want to spend time with it. You take a sip of this coffee, you don't need to think. Your tongue will tell you. Your tongue is the Jesus Christ. It'll tell you whether it's going to taste good or bad. If it tastes good, your organism says, Ricardo, take another sip. That's where lust and greed come in. They're organic. They're natural. There is nothing to forgive. Okay? So you see someone attractive, you pursue them. You become a political animal. Should I say hi now or later? I'm going to say hello to them later because I stink. Okay? Now, if you don't have any money in your pocket, you're going to delay asking them out for a cup of coffee. But you're a con artist at this point. You will do whatever it takes to take them out, and you do. Now, that's not going to be enough for you because as a human being, something about you says, how does it feel to touch her hands? And eventually you will. How does it feel to touch her shoulders? And long story short, eventually the two of you will find yourselves in the bedroom, completely naked. And you do what people do. Okay? And it's fun. And you want more of it. Sex is no different than a cup of coffee. Now, something is going to happen to the experience. All experiences after a while, they begin to oxidize. You begin to lose interest. You don't have to be a Jesus Christ or a Buddha to know that life is disappointing. Everything you touch, give it some time, you will lose interest. Okay? Let's say she comes to you and she says, I'm pregnant. Now you love her, all that stuff, fine. You realize now you need to drop out of school. You need to get a job. Full-time, healthcare. Then your wife goes into labor. Then you come home after 8, 9, 10 hours of work. Now you have to carry this kid around. You're not going to be sleeping as much. Then you're going to go to Costco and buy all sorts of things. Diapers, expensive. Formula, expensive. Studio is not going to do anymore. You need a 1 or maybe a 2-bedroom. Let's say now you're an immigrant and your parents brought you here. Brought you here when you were 2. Now, as you become more mature in parenting, begin to reflect. Did my father go through all of this? No wonder why he was never home. He worked from 6 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, came home, showered, went to another job, then Uber. And then he bought me toys. And then he watched me destroy the toys. Then he made me food. Then he watched me throw the food in the trash. Then he cleaned up after me, despite being so exhausted. And then you call your parents. And then he said, Dad, I'm beginning to understand. I'm really sorry for what I put you guys through. That's how you begin to reflect. You're an idiot in the beginning. Then you do things because it just happens. You have sex, it happens. You're attracted, it happens. And then kids force you to do things. And you lose time. And you lose friends. And you lose sleep. And you lose patience. And then you realize all you do are just screaming at your kids. And then once in a while you catch yourself. She's only a year old. What the hell does she know about anything? Now, how long has it been since you've talked to your father? 5 years. Then you realize you're an ass. Then you call. Then you ask for forgiveness. It's only with pain, awareness, we begin to reflect. And reflection is going to give you so much pain. And imagine if you've never been in the business of calling anybody and saying, I'm sorry. You know how difficult it's going to be for you as a man to call your father and say, Mom, Dad, I'm really, really sorry for being such a jerk. And then whatever money you make, you send half of it to them. And your wife screams and shouts and says, oh, why are you giving your money away? And you say, woman, you just don't understand. Yeah.
So are you saying you can't reflect on something that you don't know? You only can reflect on whatever you experience?
No, you can only reflect if there's pain. Without pain, there is no reflection. Imagine you're driving home tonight, and he's driving home, there's a police car, and there's a kid being beaten up. But you're not thinking about justice right now. You're not thinking about police brutality right now. But when you witness something, and you don't have any power to fix the injustice, all of a sudden pain overcomes you. Maybe you'll just sit somewhere and cry. Maybe you'll curse God. Maybe you'll curse all the politicians. Who the hell knows? But without seeing that, you're not going to think about justice. Something must touch you in a negative way. Now, you may like me, but should I disrespect you in some way? Then you begin to reflect. Here you are. Sorry, you're not forgiven, but that's okay. Kendra, the two of you came at the same time.
Yeah.
Related? Thank God. Good to see you. Anyone else before we... Oscar.
Last class about those society we ask questions.
Well, it depends what sort of questions you ask. If, for example, the question you're asking right now is really, really good. If you were to, however, ask me, what made you be an instructor? And I say some silly thing, and then you say, well, you're not really good at what you do, so why are you doing it? Now you're attacking me. Now, these are the questions I don't usually welcome. If you ask me questions that don't touch me, I'll be fine. So whenever you ask a question that touches someone on a very personal, emotional, level, they're not going to like you as much. It's always good to ask sanitized questions. So if you have a girlfriend, just tell her you love her. Don't say, why do you love me? That's not a good question. She'll leave you. Or maybe you leave her. Anyone else? Jack?
Are you a leftist?
Leftist like communist? Do you know what that means? You do? No, I like Karl Marx. He had a great bushy beard. Yeah, and he was very focused.
Engels had
And he didn't drink or smoke weed. He was just focused. You know why? He cared for his brain cells. Anyone else? Reina? Okay. Well, if there are no questions, let me just put some things on the board and then we'll go home. Unless you have a question. See, if I do the stuff that I want to do, most of you will get bored. If, on the other hand, you ask questions, it's your questions, you'll be engaged, you'll be involved. Maybe you'll be a bit more focused. Delilah? Dahlia? Shantae?
Oh. No.
Are you racist?
I am. Anyone else?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so reflection. Okay, so reflection is important, but just not too much of it. Back.
There is nothing. There is nothing wrong with reflection as long as you have a support system. Look. Have you ever run into difficulties in life?
Yes.
And did you ever have friends with whom you spoke about your difficulties? A father, a mother, God, anyone?
Yes.
Okay, attempted, sure. All of us attempt when we run into difficulties because language is complex, and when you try to put your emotions into language, most likely you'll fail. But all that aside, when you realize that there is something that's very heavy inside you, needs to come out, and you want to share, but there is no one out there who can understand you, your sense of isolation, feeling alone, abandoned, is so intense that sometimes even the thoughts of suicide come in, depression comes in. And if it lasts for a long time, especially depression, it becomes chronic. You can't get out, okay? Now, reflection is very much like that. Imagine if you want to reflect on your life. Well, you need other people who are going through the same stuff. Like people who want a divorce, they sit together and talk about the stuff. People who are going through like alcohol rehab, that's what they do. They form a community and they talk about their losses. They'll talk about their griefs. That's what you have to do. You can't do this alone. You know. So there is nothing wrong with reflection. Also, you need to have a culture in which that culture has been around for a long, long time that forces people to think. Let me give you an example. Consider what has happened to the Jewish people for the past, say, 3,000 years. Have you read the Old Testament? These are perhaps the only group of people who have been pushed out of their homeland. Whether it's Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond, doesn't really matter. Every few years, someone comes and says, get out. So what happens? They create a philosophy of life. And the most important ingredient of that philosophy, everything happens for a reason. We are the chosen people. Those two, everything happens for a reason, we are the chosen people, it saves them, protects them. So even now, when all the stuff is happening in Israel and Palestine, we are the chosen people. Okay. If, on the other hand, you come from a culture that's young, it's novice, and it doesn't have the literature, it doesn't have the philosophy, when you get depressed, you are really on your own. There are no good books to read. There are no good people to talk to. Just go on YouTube and check out all these new self-help gurus or teachers. Their prescription is if you do A, B, C, D for about 2 weeks, you'll be fine. If, on the other hand, you go to India, the story is very different. It's not 2 weeks. It's not even 2 years. It's 22 years. So whatever it is you want to do, if it's meaningful, if it's foundational, you need to surround yourself with books and with people. Very, very difficult. So yeah, reflection is good as long as you have a community of people, a support system. Yeah.
So that's to be an observer and a reflector. Yeah.
And you'll be very alone. Yeah. If you're a reflector, there's a good chance that you won't have very many friends. And you have to pretend. And after a while, it wears you out. Anyone else right now? Yeah. Julia? What is it? Kyla. I apologize, by the way, if I don't get the names right. Eventually, Kyla.
So I guess based off of what we just watched, I kind of want to understand the difference between AIDS and identity. Because it seems like in the video, we're talking about how the society can attack you to a cave, or you yourself can attack yourself to a cave. So I'm saying, like, what's the difference between like I guess I must say I don't know, but what you associate yourself with as far as who you are as a person.
Can I tell you a story? It may not relate, but I'll do my best. I can't tell you that story. Let me see if I can find another one. Maybe I can do it this way. There is a stage in all of our lives where we simply assume things. And that particular set of assumptions go without examination, without observation, without reflection. Once in a while, you may say or ask, is what I'm assuming right? Could I be wrong? But they're usually passing. You know, they don't stay with you for very long because it's painful, because it forces you to think really deeply about things. And it's too much, so you don't stay with it for too long. Maybe I should do this differently. I need to put things on the board, but I'm a little tired. I don't really want to. Kyla, imagine for a moment, and forgive me, this is just the way I do business. I don't mean to offend anyone. Imagine that I like you and you like me. Now, all of that is resting on a set of assumptions that I like you because I know who you are, and you like me because you know who I am, and all that. And eventually, this attraction blossoms, and one morning I wake up and I say, I love you, and you say, I love you back. You identify yourself as having a companion. Like just saying, my wife, I'm your husband. Now, I'm 60 and you're 18. Let's just say you're 20, just to round things up. There's a 40-year age gap between us. Now, one of the problems with love is that it blinds you to all the truths that are staring you in the face. I am 40 years older than you are. I've been to places you've never been. I'm also aware of my body. I'm not completely aware. Slowly falling apart. But love blinds you to all of that. And this assumption that I love you and I will continue to love you. And it allows us to create these stories. We buy a house together, we have kids together, all that. Now, motherhood is tough. You need help. And little by little, life puts you in these situations where you're forced to reflect. And whenever you reflect, you begin to examine, you begin to second guess yourself. Were you right in falling in love with me, liking me? And with every doubt, there is a crack in who you think you are and what you think you like. And as the cracks grow bigger and bigger and bigger, your identity as a wife goes away. And you think yourself as a single woman now. And so I guess the point I'm trying to make is the following. As long as you don't examine, you don't ask, you don't doubt, you're not skeptical, your identity remains intact. The best example, and it's an example I've given to all my classes for the past maybe 30 years of teaching, is the life story of Malcolm X, his autobiography. And I think Bruce Lee was right in the sense that you write something, you read something, and you think you understand, but you don't. Books don't hit back, like boards don't hit back. I don't know how a kid can watch his father being lynched. I mean, you love your dad, and there he is. What the hell do you do? So you have this identity. I hate this particular group of people. Injustice. Okay. Then you go to school. You want to be a lawyer. And then the teacher you love tells you, because of your skin color, there isn't much mobility for you. You can't go much higher in society. This is where you are. That identity that he has is reinforced. I amount to nothing in this culture. So what does he do? He becomes a thief. Another reinforcement. And then he gets caught. We haven't even talked about the fact that he very much enjoyed being called the orange poodle. You like conformity. You like people liking you. We need that. I need you to like me. If I walk into this class and everybody's looking at me in a mean-spirited way, I wouldn't know what to talk about. It wouldn't be a fun class. So all of a sudden, he finds someone in prison who gives him a different philosophy of life. Now, that's one of the things you need to understand. It's magical. I don't really know how transformation comes about. I don't know at what stage an alcoholic says, I don't want to drink anymore. I don't know at what stage a woman wakes up and says, I don't want to be married anymore. I don't know at what stage, as a woman, your body screams and says, give me a goddamn child. Okay? If you're familiar with the history of Christianity, it's very, very initial stages. There's a guy named Saul who walks around killing Christians. He has a vision. Jesus coming to him telling him, what the hell is wrong with you, man? These are people who want to transform their lives, their psyches. They're moved with this particular spirit. Help them, don't crucify them. How it happens, who the hell knows? So in prison, all of a sudden someone comes and says, listen, you need to love yourself. But not the Oprah Winfrey kind of a love. I mean, you can't be stupid and then say, I love myself. Well, that's stupid. Love yourself if you're educated. Love yourself if you can think well. Love yourself if you can kind of benefit other human beings. Don't love yourself because you have the power to make your black hair turn yellow. So little by little, he begins to learn different words, definitions. You know, a book is very easy to read. You can probably read the entire book in like 2 sittings. But going back between Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm, Elijah tells me I need to be like a Jesus Christ. But Malcolm, I can just be my old self, smoke and drink and have a good time with this and that. So what you have is Elijah gives him one cave. The culture in which he lived gave him a different cave. He loved the first cave until the prison system came in, until his brother Reggie came in, until Elijah Muhammad came in. Then he finds out a few things. He begins to think a little bit. And all of a sudden says, I don't like the cultural cave. I don't like the Elijah Muhammad cave. I don't like the microphone cave. I don't like the power cave. I don't like the money cave. I want to think. I want to go to Saudi Arabia and see what Islam smells like firsthand for myself. And he goes there to his surprise. White, black, brown, yellow, blue, sit, pray together. When he comes back, you have a completely different human being. I don't care what your skin color is. If you find my door, knock on it. You're welcome. So what do you have in a single lifetime? In a single lifetime, you have the cultural Malcolm, you have the prison Malcolm, you have the Elijah Muhammad Malcolm, and you have the autonomous Malcolm. And even when he is told, buddy, you're going to get shot, now you have a brand new Malcolm. Life is not worth living without these ideas. I don't care if I'm a husband. I don't care if I'm a father. I don't care if I'm black or white or blue. I live on the stage with these ideas. If I get shot, I will be shot in paradise. I'm talking about these ideas. You have a completely different identity.
So we have more. Everything you say.
At different stages, yeah, you'll kind of gain your maturity in a different way. You'll become different people. Yeah. But these are stages. You also have stations that I say something nasty to you, an identity comes out, and you're enraged. You see a homeless person, something about you softens up, and you give him $20. You know, you go home and there's your companion. You guys are having a, good time and very, very intimate. That's a different kind of identity. So in a single day, you go through like 50, 60 different personalities. Yeah.
A little bit about the whole concept of thrownness, like that was something that.
Yeah. I'm from Iran. And I was born in 1960s, early 1960s. The culture was very religious, not my choosing. My parents, not my choosing. Being born in the 1960s, not my choosing. Having those parents, not my choosing. Iran is a Muslim country, not my choosing. When you walk the streets, you see women with hijab or coverings. You know, our forms of entertainment was going to the mosque, listening to sermons, sitting in mosque during Ramadan or fasting months with these huge platters. 20 would sit around this big plate, and with our hands we would eat. Not my choosing. And the point I'm trying to make is this. I came out, my mother, as a blank floppy disk. And the culture does something very strange. It gives me language. It gives me the Persian language. It's poetic. It's filled with sorrow and sadness. Okay? The streets, it's filled with religious messages. And so when my eyes see those things, I take them in. They become part of who and what I am. We walk to school. On the days where snow was heavy, schools would be shut. I was also born at a time where there was revolutions, mass movements. I have no choice but to be political. Not my choosing. Why political? Because, well, in 1911, 1901, the entire Middle Eastern map was shaped and reshaped and shaped and reshaped again, 1,000 times by the West. So am I biased towards the West? Absolutely. Not my choosing. So I am thrown in certain circumstances, in certain philosophies, in certain social milieus. And I react. And I react because what the culture gives me, what my parents give me, okay, they become part of who and what I am. They make me who I am. I don't reflect. I react. And so to some extent, the idea that if someone slaps you on the right cheek, offer the left, I mean, you really have to be a profoundly reflective and superhuman. Why? Because you have to say, oh, Amir says he's racist. I wonder why. And you have to consider when I was born, who my parents are, you know, all those things. If you watch the movie American History X, so what you have is a guy who's thrown into a culture that makes him a racist. When he goes into prison, he's still a profound and intense racist. Okay? When he is physically assaulted and abused by his own community, but protected and saved by a black man, all of a sudden something about him changes. So his thrownness dies. Him as a racist, all of a sudden gets deleted. Why? Because the philosophy of life that he was born with and is assumed to be correct is challenged. His own people violated him. The person who he thought to be an enemy, he saved him. Now he's thrown into another cave. But this particular cave is much more refined. He comes out a bit more baptized. And when he goes back into his city life, he tries to protect his brother. So thrownness basically is that whenever you try to make a judgment, you need to understand that people react. They don't reflect. Life throws you into a circumstance and you just react. You, on the other hand, your task is to sit back and say, okay, why is this person behaving this way? Now, the problem with that is, if I come over there and slap you, for example, forgive me, okay, not only must you carry the cross of your own anger, your own pain. I mean, carrying the cross means you refrain from reacting. An eye for an eye does not exist for you. You're more than that. Not only must you understand why I did what I did. That's one cross you got to carry. You must also carry the cross of your emotions. I mean, it's a tragedy that kids have to go through these days. You know, the father isn't there, the mother isn't there, and you have a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. Not only the 15-year-old must figure out who the hell he or she is, but he or she must also sit back and say, why is my parent so messed up? I come home, there is no food. The house is dirty. She's always high or drugged up in this way or that way. And you realize, well, you're a 15-year-old, you're trying to figure out who you are. You're also trying to figure out what's wrong with your parents. You're also trying to take care of your kids, your kid sister, kid brother. It's just too much. And then what you get as a culture is this. Everybody's broken at such a young age. And the idea of thrownness is people are just who and what they are, not because they made themselves into this. They're accidents, complete accidents. You, on the other hand, who wants to be a philosopher or a thinker or a reflector, if you want to reflect about things the right way, you really need to kind of walk into society completely devoid of emotions. Only compassion, no anger. And if you need to have anger inside you, it needs to be justified. Be angry for the right reasons. And that removes the idea or the concept of free will. None of us in this class have the freedom to create or recreate ourselves. It doesn't work that way. The only reason, Wolf, why you're in this class is very, very simple. You didn't choose this class. You took a class from me some semesters ago. You liked the class, so much so that your companion is Persian. You chose a Persian as your companion. Why? Because I'm Persian. And so this class comes up and you sign up for it. Why? Well, because when you enrolled in my class some semesters ago, your experience was one of pleasure, positivity. And like any good instinctual animal, you want that pleasure to continue. You want more of it. Here you are. Now, it's a good thing that you're aware that the pleasure you had was a positive one. It made you perhaps a better thinker, perhaps. You can use language a different way. I didn't invite you to get drunk, or to get high, or to act stupid. You sit and you think, and you like that. That's your stage in life. And you want that to be repeated, and here you are. If on the other hand, I was some douchebag, right, you wouldn't be here. Which means that in some ways, pay very close attention to what life offers you and see the end product. If it's one of positivity, try to repeat it. Be lustful for that. Be greedy for that. But that means that we have to redefine what lust and greed and those things are, which we'll do like later. Anyone else? Yeah, Abi.
What are some right reasons?
Two?
What are some right reasons?
To be angry? So, all emotions, one of the best examples is Karl Marx. Marx is initially the follower of this German philosopher named Hegel. Hegel is a romantic philosopher. Romantic in the sense that eventually things will turn out to be okay. Life is going this way, okay? Then all of a sudden, a different force comes about. These two begin to wrestle. And upon these two merging, these two forces, they'll have a child. That child will be one of light. It'll be positive. It'll be good. Okay? Like you are angry at me, I'm angry at you. These are two forces. Then we sit and we talk. And out of it, there is compromise. Our relationship will continue. And that's what Karl Marx initially believed. But you're talking about the 19th century. People are turning into machines. Cities are becoming really, really huge. Their soul is just being sucked out of them, then being trashed. He sits and begins to examine society. Now, he becomes really, really angry. He's angry at religion because if you're being harmed, you're supposed to rise up and fight back. But he says, what the hell sort of a Christianity is this? This is not liberation theology in Chile. When people suffer injustice, they pick up arms and they fight. Kind of like when Jesus entered Jerusalem, he destroyed all the shops and said, this used to be the house of God, but now it's a den of thieves. There is nothing wrong for the liberation theologists. You pick up your gun and you fight. But he looked at all these people Their soul is being destroyed, their life is being destroyed, their relationship is being destroyed. Everything that's about being human in a decent way is being destroyed by society. Okay? So he becomes really angry. Now, Karl Marx is a single man, a tiny little man. He writes. That's how he expresses his anger. He writes. Now, that's one way you can have a very, very healthy dose of anger inside you. That you see something, but there isn't much you can do. You observe, it hurts you, pains you, you go somewhere, and you have this gift to reflect and then to write your reflections down. And that's what he does. He writes and writes and writes. So much so that when his 2-year-old girl died, and his wife told him, Carl, go out there, goddammit, get some money, buy a coffin so we can bury Jenny. He says, you know what, I'd rather write. Some people become angry and they keep the anger inside. Those are the people who will eventually go to therapy. Okay. Some people take their anger and they create a work of art. Marx is one way. Tupac was another way. You know, Walt Whitman was another way. T.S. Eliot was another way. Okay. Then you have Plato. His teacher dies, he sees injustice, he writes this big fat book. Then you have a different kind of anger that actually takes a physical shape. All the mass movements you see. That people jump in the streets. And you have tiny little fish, one fish here, but then you have 1,000 people, now you have a whale. They demand change. So anger has all these different layers to it. It can be abstract, just in the form of ideas. Ideas can be spoken, they can be written, or they could just be silenced. Some can be written, and some can take a physical shape. If you're angry at your kid, and you want to like gently slap them, that's a good anger. In Buddhism, it's educational. We call it the stick of compassion. I hit you, not because I'm reacting, but just to create some boundaries for you to become aware, because fear is good. Fear protects you in life. If it's 2 in the morning and you want to go somewhere and grab yourself a bottle of Coke, for example, and there are 5 people standing with a baseball bat, you'd be an idiot to park your car and go inside. Something about it says, danger. Great, good for you. You haven't been completely calcified. Now, anger can take inner shape, it can take external shape. You could be angry at things out there, or you could be angry at things in here. And whenever you become angry at yourself, you become aware of a whole host of things. A lot of things that you've wasted, opportunities lost. Whether or not you can do anything about that, that's a different story. Whenever you're angry but there isn't much you can do, you get depressed. And depression always makes you lonely. And you must always go through the grieving process. There are about 8 or 9 or 10 steps. But I think on the whole, you need to be angry. Anger is good. For a variety of reasons. First, I mean, you were just born from somewhere. Then you're under an avalanche of responsibilities that you didn't ask. You know, gotta get married, gotta have kids, go to school, make money, pay rent, get old, get sick, and die a miserable death. And then you go out there in society. You know, everything's a mess. You know, you drive to campus today, as I do, every single day. Trash everywhere. Trash everywhere. The chancellor gets $500,000 a year. I don't know what he or she does. I don't know what people do with all that money. Their rent is paid, their car is paid, their vacation is paid, every goddamn thing that they did, they probably pee, they get paid for it. I mean, look around, man. This room should make you angry. And the chairs are uncomfortable, there's no food. But anyone else? Why what?
Why you think there's food?
That was a joke. Yeah. For those of you who have been in my classes before, forgive me for my writing, my drawing, and the repeat. I don't really need to do this. Let me just do it. You just want to like make fun of me. ز دست و دیده و دل هر دو فریاد، هر آنچه دیده بیند دل کند یاد. بسازم خنجری نیشه ز فولاد، زنم بر دیده تا دل گردد آزاد. ز دست دیده و دل. I have 5 senses: the eyes, the ears, the nose, the touch, and the tongue, taste. So these are the 5 senses, okay? This is you, and this is the world. You occupy this particular place. It has culture in it. It has politics in it. It has customs in it. It has people in it. And this day and age, all these people come with their own unique software. Okay. Now, what this world will give you is experiences. You see things, you hear things, you smell things. You walk into the bathroom, it smells bad, you run out. You come to this class, I scream and I shout, it bothers your ears, you run out. That's what we do. Now, experiences, when they come to you, they're either negative or positive. If I ask you who Mayela is, a set of experiences, some negative, some positive. Okay? The negatives translate into pain. The positive translate into pleasure. None of this stuff is up to you. It just comes your way. Now, thank God that you and I get to a certain age where all the things that you experience get stored in your brain in a place called memory. This is your friend as well as your enemy. It tells you what things you should be afraid of. Why? They gave you pain. Okay? Now, whatever is negative, you don't want it to be repeated. But to make sure it's not repeated, if, for example, you came to this class and you had a bad experience, before you take another philosophy class, you check the schedule. If my name is on there, you say, hell no. Why? You don't want this to be repeated. Because your experience of my class was so negative, that gave you so much pain. Okay? Because if you didn't have this experience in your memory, you would come to my class and you would repeat the pain again. If on the other hand, my class gave you pleasure, again, thank God that you have a brain that's healthy enough to store experiences. That memory says, you know what, you're bored, it's summer, there is nothing to do. Let me see if Laney is offering any interesting classes. But not all the classes, just philosophy classes. And I'm looking for one particular name. Now, whether it's negative or positive, what these experiences create are what we call feelings. This is your GPS. The problem with feelings, sometimes they create shadows in the sense that you come to this class and you just look at my face and look at the way I talk and you look at some of my ridiculous things that I say and you say, yuck, and you leave. But that was only the first night. The second night, I'm much more calmer and you like me just a little bit. And then you go back and you say, wow, on Monday I didn't like him, but on Tuesday I like him. And then you come on Wednesday and say, man, I really love him. So sometimes this can kind of lead you to the wrong place. Now, if there is the negative feeling, but you have no power to control the environment, if on the other hand, you and I are in a relationship, and you have no money, and I pay the rent, and I pay for food, and your entire life is resting on me, and I am profoundly abusive, this negative experience is going to repeat itself until this feeling becomes an emotion. And this particular emotion is one of sadness, anger, hatred. You hate me. There isn't much you can do about it. Without me, you'd be in the streets. And if this emotion continues, okay, it goes and lives in your psyche. Now it has roots inside you. It's what we call trauma. Now, trauma can be negative, it could be positive. If Jesus Christ is your friend and he demands perfection from you, that's a traumatic experience. But the outcome is that you're going to be a thinker, a reflector, a writer, and someone who's going to go out there and give sermons. But for that to happen, you have to be patient for about 20 years. If you're in this relationship with me, and I'm causing negative trauma, you're going to be depressed, okay? You're going to be lonely, and eventually you'll be in therapy. ز دست دیده و دل هر دو فریاد هر آنچه دیده کند هر آنچه دیده بیند دل کند یاد. That there is a place inside us that remembers all of our experiences. You know, experience of pleasure and pain. Now, it's not abstract because after a while, when you consume too much alcohol, for example, or you smoke too much weed, or you watch too much porn, or you read too many books, your body demands that particular addiction. It's no longer abstract. Your body begins to crave it. And so what this guy is saying, everything I've experienced now lives inside me. It seems that I'm a slave to everything that's stored inside me. And these are vultures. I want like a moment of peace. I want to just go on a walk without being bothered by the image of my boyfriend or girlfriend, or this desire, or that trauma. And there are two approaches to this. You can either look for a quick fix, or you can just look for a fix. A quick fix is something we've talked about. You know, you're lonely, pathetic, and so you go out there, you find a man or a woman, you sleep with them, you're comfortable for a night or two or three, but there is something beastly about you that you can't do long-term relationships. You don't have the software for it. So the only thing you can do is just be with someone for 2 weeks or 2 years and then walk away, despite the fact that you long for a solid relationship. And after a while, you just become addicted to that particular way of being. If there are no serious cracks inside people, you don't need like an overhaul. You just need a brake job, or you just need to change your tires. If on the other hand, your engine and transmission is bad, that's a different story. Mental illness is, depending on what shade of illness you're talking about, it like lives inside your soul. It's like something happened to you and you're cracked. And it's not a tiny crack, it's a huge crack. And that's very, very difficult to fix. Not impossible. And it's good to know those things because there are lots of people around who'll tell you, that, oh yeah, if you do A, B, C, D, you can overcome this particular, difficulty. And it's not true. Always take your car to a good mechanic if it's broken. They usually charge a lot, but once they fix it, it comes with a warranty. Anyone else? Yeah. Ida? Yeah.
You were talking about trauma and psyche. I guess my question is there a difference in facing the soul and trauma and living with it? Like, you don't really, is there a difference? Are you truly fixed, or are you just living with that trauma? You're able to.
So, again, for those of you who've been in my classes before, forgive me. I don't need to really write anything down. So let me give it to you this way. Imagine for a moment that I'm relatively healthy. I have like 4 wives and 16 kids and all that. And I have all these dreams for my future. Let's say tomorrow I have an appointment with my doctor. Take some tests and all that. And she says, Amir, come by, I need to talk to you. I go there. Now remember, I have plans for my future. I have all these things I want to do. She says, Amir, I'm sorry. What? You have cancer. What do you mean? You have cancer? What is that? Is it candy? Cancer means death, in my mind. Cancer means your future disappears. Cancer means all the things that I wanted to do go away. Cancer means I will not see my kids marry. Cancer means my wife will probably marry someone. Cancer means my parents coming to my grave. And my parents are old. Cancer means I no longer will be here. That's devastating. That's traumatic. I'm going to say, no, you probably got your degree in, I don't know, somewhere, online. You're not a very good doctor. I want a second opinion, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth. So the first stage of dealing with any trauma is you deny it. It can't be true. I can't be failing this class. I've been coming to class all the time. True, I've been playing with my phone. Okay. That can't be. I'm always there paying attention. I mean, how many days of class did I really miss? Only 10? Right? So you deny. Accepting trauma is very, very tough. And I don't know when the denial stage is going to end. I don't want to envision my death and my non-existence anymore. And then I get a second opinion, a third, and a fourth, and a fifth. And they all tell me I have stage 4 cancer. And it's not curable. I'm not a very reflective human being. I'm pathetic. In many ways, I'm a coward. And so I move into the second stage, which is anger. Why me? It should be him. I mean, look at him. I'm prettier than he is. I come from a better culture than him. I benefit society in ways that he will never. He needs to die, not me. And why is God doing this to me? I go to church, I pay my taxes, I'm good to my parents. Why me? I'm angry at all the things I wanted to do but never got a chance or really never had the courage to do. Become angry for a whole host of things. And who the hell knows when this stage is going to end? Then coming to realize I'm just tired of being angry all the time, I say, you know what? I'm going to go to the church tonight. And I'm going to sit by the cross and say, God, I know you have lots of magical powers. I want to wake up tomorrow and let this cancer pass by me. You know, like the Garden of Gethsemane, let this cup pass by me. Let this cancer pass by me. And if I go to the doctor tomorrow and she tells me that I have no cancer, I will devote the rest of my life to feeding the hungry and sheltering the homeless. So I begin to bargain with God. You know, it's like me and you being in a relationship and you want to leave me and I say, listen, Ida, I promise I will take out the garbage. I will wash dishes. I'll buy you a ring from Costco. You know, just don't leave me. I'm trying to bargain. And you say, Amir, you suck as a human being. You suck as a husband. You have no redeeming qualities. Goodbye. And then I realized that it doesn't matter how many times I pray, how many times I cry, how intense my crying is. God remains silent. And then I move to the fourth stage. Now remember, no one knows how long each stage will be. I don't know how long I will continue to deny. I don't know how long I'll continue to be angry. I don't know how long I'll be in the bargaining stage. And then I get really, really depressed. Denial hasn't worked. Anger hasn't worked. Bargaining hasn't worked. And there is another thing you need to understand about me coming to realize I have cancer and I'm going to die. I don't have the language to express how I feel to anybody. 8 billion people and I feel so alone. And things are so dark and so bleak. The curtains are always shut. Phones are never answered. Text, never responded. I lose everything. Now, at the end of depression, which is a very long and dark tunnel, if I'm lucky, something interesting will happen. One morning I wake up and I say, Amir, what is wrong with you? So you have cancer. So you're going to die. Call your mom and dad. Whatever time you have left, whatever energy you still have, give it to people in a nice, beneficial, healthy way. Be kind. You've been mean-spirited most of your life. Exercise some compassion now. Give your things away. Now I accept. Now when you as my wife come to me and you're on my bedside and you say, Amir, can I do anything for you? I say, Ida, love, listen. It's not good to be alone in life. You love me, I love you, fine. I will die. You want to grieve for maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a year, grieve. You want to be angry, be angry. But go back on the dating scene. Find someone you can watch movies with, have food with, cry with, laugh with, die with. Now that is a place of acceptance. Now how that'll happen, for whom, what stages, no one knows. So yes, you can have trauma, you can eventually come to accept it, live with it, and it becomes this source of wisdom for you. Because in it, you will find the value of time, forgiveness. That most of life has been about tables and chairs, but now for the first time you understand that you need to take care of your soul. Whatever that may mean for you. Yeah. So the task is not really to get rid of trauma, but to transform it into something that's useful. What time is it?
8:05.
8:05. All right, let's do this for another hour and then go home. Just kidding, bro. Any other questions before we... No one? Sorry? Urgency? You can't make the grass grow by pulling it. I mean, that guy over there keeps playing with his phone. What can I tell him? What's the use? Can't tell him anything. And why? And that's one of the things about, that's one of the most perhaps tragic verses you will find in the New Testament, the Gospels. Why would anyone desire to pull a grass to make it grow? Maybe they want their kids to walk on it. Maybe they want to run it. Maybe they want to play soccer on it. But the truth is, everything takes time to mature, to grow, to understand. I mean, look at Jesus. He walked around for 3 years. He said all these stories, did all these things. Eventually, they all betrayed him. He couldn't even understand his own lesson, that you can make the grass grow. For those of us in this class who have kids, we try to talk to them. They're stupid. Not because they want to be stupid, they're just kids. I mean, some of you ask, well, how do I get an A in this class? Well, Jesus Christ, if you know how to think, that thinking will lead you to an A. I can't give you directions. Maturity just takes time. You know, somehow I want to kind of use my time in a really, really healthy way. I don't know what that means. I want to write, just don't have the energy. So I eat a lot of carrots, thinking carrots will give me energy. They don't. So all I'm left with is this urgency inside me, but it goes nowhere. It's like this hot air, and it cooks you from inside. You know. And I think the lesson in it is, listen, you got to be patient. If your boyfriend is stupid, yeah, talk to him once in a while, you know. But you got to put up with him. There isn't much you can do. And if you got kids, by the time they figure out the amount of time energy, your youth, your life you have given them? Because they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it for a long, long, long time until they become parents themselves. And that's not even enough. They need to have these moments where life stops them. They said, did my father do all of this for me? You know. One of the best stories you will find about, I think, parents who truly care and have this urgency about them to protect their kids. Read the story of the Buddha. It's beautiful. You know, and they do what our parents do for us. They don't want us to see drugs. They don't want us to see alcohol. They don't want us to see violence. They don't want us to see any of the things that will harm our psyche. But one day the kid comes home and says, "Hey, Dad, I learned a brand new word today in school." "Yeah?" And you think it's going to be like philosophy or compassion. He says, "I learned fuck." "What?" He said, "Oh my God, I built this castle around them, you know, so that nothing bad would ever get into this castle." And all of a sudden, this kid comes home with all this trash. His language is bad. He's foul-mouthed. He plays video games 24/7. He's got crummy friends. He doesn't think. He's just an idiot. Right? And you say, okay, how can I fix this? You know, and especially for mothers. Fathers are a little weird, but for mothers, you know, they come out of you. You say, I need to do something about this. There isn't much you can do. گلی که خون بدادم پیچ تابش ز آب دیدگونم دادم آبش به درگاه الهی کی روابی گل از ما دیگری گیره گلابش. That whenever you create something, I mean, when you write a really, really good essay, really good essay that has all this wisdom and understanding and insight, when you write this essay, there is like 50 years of experience, you know, and the instructor takes it, and there are all these red marks, and comes back with like a 60 out of 100. I said, God damn it, are you blind? You know, I wrote this essay knowing how I wasted time, my youth, this and that. I have all this stuff in this essay, man. Are you blind? Can't you see? And the answer is no, can't see. You know, aside from the outside vultures, the truth is the word insan in Arabic and Persian comes from the word nosia, which means forgetful. And you don't have to speak Persian. Read, I think, the Gospel of, I don't know what Gospel, when Jesus goes up the mountain, you know, gets himself a couple of disciples, and he says, "You three come with me. Make sure you stay awake. I'll be right back." And the guy goes up, comes down like 2 seconds later, and all three of them are asleep. He says, "Couldn't you guys like stay awake for like even a minute?" And it's about what it means to be human. We are forgetful. We forget. Even if you have urgency inside you, even if you have desires and inspiration inside you, they will be taken away. You will forget them. You will break the promises you've kept to yourself. So when we talk about people like Malcolm, Gilgamesh, the Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus, these are remarkable human beings, and life does not create people like this very often. Once in a while, you have a Kobe Bryant. Once in a while, you have a Magic Johnson. The rest are just, you know, regular chefs. And the awful things about these people, as Sigmund Freud would say, they create the superego inside us because they're so tantalizing, they're so delicious. I mean, Jesus leaving his parents, going somewhere for 18 years, coming back, inspiring people, and then walking towards his death. Doesn't care about Teslas, doesn't care about going to school, doesn't care about having a wife or a husband or having children. He's all about the kingdom of God within. Say, man, I want to be like that. I want my sex to be meaningful, filled with love. I want my life to be meaningful. They create, you know, this envy inside us. I want to be like Jesus or Socrates, but I can't. So I got to just live with the crummy Amir Sabzavari and with the pathetic things that he does and says. Anyone else? Reina? You're very, it's good to see you. What time is it now? 8:30? Let's do this for 10 more minutes and then we'll go home. Okay, so in 10 minutes, let me do something, and then, so tomorrow when we come back, we can kind of start our first story, which is the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, before I put some stuff on the board, which probably will not happen, which is a nice thing to say, let me say a couple of things about this American psychologist. Had a very difficult time growing up. He was a Jew in New York, and he wasn't very attractive physically. So he never thought he'd be married. He never imagined anyone would like him. He never imagined he would amount to anything. But he was one of those magical people that just life created. His name is Abraham Maslow. And despite being this giant of a psychologist, he hated his mom. And that should tell you something. That just because you know something, it doesn't mean you can actually apply it. Okay? Just because you know what compassion is, it doesn't mean that you know how to apply it. Just because you know what generosity means, it doesn't mean that you can apply it to your life. It just means that you know it. Even when his mom died, he refused to go to her grave. He hated it. But the 1950s and 40s and 50s and 60s, they were just interesting times. Anyways, these are the things that you need. And we have to go step by step. For those of you who want to understand the meaning of life, for those of you who are on a spiritual quest, whatever that may mean for you, there are prerequisites. Okay? It's like you want to study calculus, but before you actually take the class, you need like algebra. Okay? You need to go through like 5-6 years of basic mathematics before you can get yourself to calculus. And this is important for you to know so you don't have any illusions. And just in case you pursue something and you fall or fail, you don't get too hard on yourself. So, food, the very basic. You need food. For those of you who like to go to Safeway, if you want to get food, you need money. Jesus is wrong. Man initially lives by bread alone. Without food, you have no energy. For those of you in this class who have ever fasted, as we did, when you don't eat food, you have no energy to walk, to talk, to think, to feel. All you want to do is sleep. Food is the very first pillar of life. But to get food, you need money. But food by itself is not enough because you need to be healthy. Your body needs to process what you put in it. If you're sick all the time, you have no brain space to think about God. You just want this disease to be removed from you. You want to walk. You want this migraine to just go away so you can sit and eat food in peace. So physically, you need to be healthy. You need to make sure you have food available at all times. Then you need shelter. You don't want to be homeless, living in your car. Remember, everything requires brain space. If I am sick with cancer stage number 4, and I'm not yet at the acceptance stage, everything I think about is sickness and death and medication and doctor. I don't have time to read or think about any other thing. I am filled with anger. So make sure your physical life is secure. Food, shelter, and your health. Now remember, food and shelter, they demand money. You need to have a secure job. Because you can't always be thinking about, am I going to get fired today? Am I going to have next month's rent? So remember, the sort of people we're going to talk about in this class for the next 4 or 5 weeks, they're not like us. They don't think about food. They don't think about shelter. They are beyond that stuff. Why? They've had it. Moses is a prince. Muhammad is married to the wealthiest woman in Arabia. The Buddha is a prince. Jesus has a father who has a shop. His business is prospering. Even Malcolm X is rich in prison. We're not talking about homeless people. We're not talking about sick people. We're talking about people for whom food, shelter, and clothing are secure. So before you pick up the Bible, before you go to church, look at where you are. If you have no money, go to church and ask God to give you some money. Or open some doors where you can make money. If you're sick, maybe you can pray and ask God to cure you. But do not mistake that for a spiritual quest. Okay? Now, when you have a shelter, it's not enough that you have food, shelter, you have food and clothing and health, and you go into your room or apartment and you're all alone. What's the use of having food, having shelter, having health, but you suffer from loneliness? Now you're talking about the emotions, not so much the physical body. You need to be emotionally healthy, and it begins at home. You must have had good models. Your father must have loved you. Your mom must have loved you. Or if you don't have them, your grandparents have loved you. If you don't have them, friendships that revolve around love. Because when you love, you trust. When you trust, you have faith. It means emotionally you're not damaged, you're not broken. Now, that doesn't mean that if you didn't have or don't have any of this stuff, you can't be on this quest. It means that they are very, very, very helpful if you do have them. Now, once you have the shelter, you have your parents' love, your companions' love, your children's love, then you say, my mom loves you and so does my dad, but I want to go out there. I want to make friends. I want society to love me. I want to become a CEO. I want to get a PhD. I want to make a name for myself in society. Parents loving you is not enough. You want to establish yourself as a human being in society. Remember, you have to graduate from all these different stages. And once you graduate, they become irrelevant. When you're hungry, all you think about is food. But when your belly is full, you no longer think about food. As long as you don't have any money or security, that's all you think about. I want to get a job, a secure paycheck. Once you have it, then you have more brain space where you can entertain other things. In the 1960s, something awful happened. The hippie movement and all of that. But you had all these teachers coming from these places to America. And they didn't understand the American people, the American psyche, the American culture. They accepted all sorts of people. People whose shelter were broken, who had no love in their life, who were broken from within and without. There's a place in Berkeley called, I think, Krishna Consciousness. All these people, they're not even Indian. They wear these like robes, they shave their heads, On Sundays, they walk around with these drums and they scream like Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Things that usually idiots do. And when you examine these people, food, shelter, clothing, they have nothing. They have no security. And what Maslow argued, that if you don't have love initially in your home with your parents, when you have a romantic love relationship, for the most part, it's going to be counterfeit. It's going to fall apart. You need models. Those early models become GPS. They're maps. Okay? Now, there comes a point where you say, I am healthy. I don't need medical. I have food. I have a fridge in the kitchen, I have a fridge in the garage, another fridge in my car. I have plenty of money. And my place is paid for. And I have a job. And then there comes a point where you sit and say, for some strange reason, like the salmon fish, I don't feel at home. I have everything, and yet I'm not happy. Now remember, you identify yourself with your physical body. You are a healthy young man. Your belly is full. You have privilege. You have a job. Everything about your physical life is good. Emotionally, you are healthy. And yet, something from within keeps nagging at you. Okay? The problem with this particular voice that roars from within is the following. You're married, but you feel so alone. You have a home, but you feel so homeless. Your stomach is full, but there are parts of you that yearn and hunger for something unknown. And these roars make everything you have null and void, meaningless. You don't care for your house anymore. You don't care for your relationship anymore. And it is devastating. So when we talk about Gilgamesh and the Buddha and Jesus and Moses, you need to have a tremendous amount of respect for these people, because they walked away from everything that you and I desire. Everything. And it wasn't just abstract, sitting in the room and reading a goddamn book. Any questions or comments? Well, it's good to see all of you. Tomorrow we'll begin our first story. So, have a good evening. Walk to your cars with someone. Don't walk alone. See you tomorrow.